I never had a problem with insects. However, spiders were the only exception, because I was bitten by one a few years ago. So this is what happened to me. I was only 12 years old at the time. That day, we had a small party at school, where everyone had to bring something to eat. I went to the big table where the others had already put everything in place. After I found an empty seat, I took my small airtight container out of my backpack, but I froze as soon as I opened it. There were only insects left inside, and I could see some of the bugs falling on my legs and on both of my shoes. Everyone was staring at me in complete silence, especially my teacher, who was even more terrified. She asked me how long the food had been in the container. Of course, I explained to her that I had only wrapped it this morning, but I was literally able to see all the insects moving around inside the container. Besides, this situation in front of my classmates was incredibly uncomfortable for me. It was embarrassing. That's why I ran to the restroom, trying to get rid of the insects. It was during the winter season, so when I headed home, it was already dark outside. After that terrible incident, I was walking along the usual route in a depressed mood, and suddenly, I heard rustling behind me. I stopped and looked around, but I couldn't see anything that could make that sound. Oh, well, it's probably just my imagination. However, as I continued to walk, I saw a middle-aged man with a disgusting face and greasy hair standing in front of me. "What are you doing out here all alone so late, young lady?" he asked me with a deep, low voice, and I replied that I was just on my way home, while nervous. None of my neighbors were there at the time. I froze and couldn't move a single muscle when he asked me if I was hungry. I know, I was such a fool. I answered yes. Then he offered me some of his food, but I turned it down at first. I was only thinking about what I should do at that moment and how I could escape from the horrible situation. But when he opened his container, I couldn't believe my eyes. A horrible smell got into my nose and I saw it. The bugs. A crowd of insects flew in my face with a deafening loud sound. In horror, I screamed and fell to my back on the road. My arm must have been injured, but I didn't have any time to feel my injury. When my gaze slowly went upwards, this weird man slowly took a bug and he ate it. As soon as I saw this very sight, I felt like I was going to throw up at any moment. All of a sudden, something started crawling up my leg, and there were spiders all over it. Being extremely terrified, I jumped up immediately and ran as quickly as I could. Fortunately, he didn't follow me, and I never saw that man again around my town. But the insect phobia has remained. I didn't tell my family about that incident because they wouldn't believe me anyway. Every time I see insects, the thought of him comes back to me. Even a ladybug scares me now. Nevertheless, there is a question that never leaves my head. If I had failed to run away that day, what would the man have tried to do with me?